Hi, this is Leann Harris, and this is Getting to Know Your Realtor. And again, on season 3, what we're doing is we are going through and we are interviewing authors. And today we are getting to know Harma Hartouni, and he is going to talk to you a little bit about his book, Getting Back Up. But I wanted to give a little bit of preempt of what we're about ready to hear here. So Harma is actually an Armenian Christian who was raised in a Muslim country. And he came out in the gay community, and to his mother being in this community that wasn't quite as accepting. And so what you're going to hear after he was literally hit by a bus and ended up in West Hollywood is this man's incredible journey to actually getting back up physically, like 2 legs broken, physically getting back up. He is an entrepreneur that has been recognized by the Los Angeles Business Journal as one of the 40 under 40. He owns a real estate company that's also within Keller Williams, like myself. You know, you always see my little logo back here. And he leads hundreds of real estate agents as well as his team. So Harma, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Did I say your last name right? Is it Hartouni?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that all the listeners know exactly how they can find you. So we had a chance to have a quick little conversation before we did this meeting. And I said, well, just let me read the book and we're just going to go into it blind. I don't want to have preempted questions. I love to catch people in their most natural element. And today you showed up on the podcast with a t-shirt that says, money is good for the good that it can do. You're pretty involved in your community, yeah?
In some communities, yeah, a few, and depends where it is. But I think my community is more like my office. There's their families, and I'm not as involved in my Armenian community, besides my own family members, and have friends and family that they know me from back home, but I'm not as involved with them.
And one of the things you and I share, one of your ex-employees came to work for me, which was really weird. I mean, it's so weird how our paths have crossed, and yet we haven't really met each other and known each other. And I'm going to get into that part of the book as well. But one of the staff members that I had hired from you said, you and Harma are so much alike. Like, we don't let people play small in our world. We push people really hard. We get loud and we're like, come on, you have to get going. And so he said, you're going to love meeting with Harma. So I'm super excited.
When is your birthday?
I'm an Aries. I'm fiery. I'm an Aries.
Yeah. It's, the way we had a conversation and our phone conversation, we're very similar. I can tell you that. Yeah.
It must be the entrepreneurial way.
I like it. So,
I do.
Yeah.
I do too.
We get things done.
Oh, sorry. See my book. I don't know if you see how many tabs I have, because I was so intrigued by a couple different, quite a few things that you had said. But one of the things that you warned me about before I read it is you said it's written in my accent. And I did not pick that up at all. I'll just tell you.
Really?
No.
Wow.
I just read along in my KW voice.
I like it. I like it. So yeah, I mean, as long as it's easy to read and understand, I was rejected by many book agents, that one of them actually wrote to me and said, your English is so poor in this book, I cannot represent you. And I was like, well, it's my English. So it's not I don't want to look like a Harvard PhD English teacher. It's just not me. And I wanted the story to be as raw, as similar to who I am. So if you read it and you know me, you will know I say a lot of analogies, I translate things. And so I'm glad if you could read it and you enjoy it, then, that's perfect.
Yes, and English is my first language, and it turns out I don't have a second language. I try to act like I know Spanish, and sometimes I know French, but you know what? Only about 3 words. Like, can you bring me breakfast in bed? That's usually what I know how to say.
That's important.
Well, let's get started on some of the questions that I had. So, one of the things that I came up with when I was reading through here was you said, no matter where you are in life, if you're dealing with something deeply personal, a secret, and you think the answer is to change your persona and become someone else, I can tell you it's a fool's errand. It's always better to be who you are and to live in acceptance. You're currently in a long-term relationship with 3 kids, and they were born through a surrogate. And so tell us, how did coming out add to the success that you have right now? Because you're a very successful man that people love to look up to. You own Keller Williams offices. You've got this long history of success. How do you think that translated?
Wow, that's a great question and loaded question. I think the courage that I had to tell my mom
Yeah.
and them that part, so I was ready to be disowned so I can move on. Obviously, that it didn't work out like that, but has helped me just not have a fear of doing something and just getting blamed or failed, and I have been so different all my life, as you know, in reading the book. I always thought something is wrong with me. I'm sick and too feminine, too weird. So try to blend in with everyone, trying to act who I wasn't. It's so tiring and exhausting to be someone else all the time. That's why I always joke with my husband. I was like, oh my God, if I worked for Disney, I would most probably be fired because it's so proper and diplomatic. You have to hold your or corporation, in any. It's just meaning that, and this is before 20 years ago. It was harder to be who now we're so encouraged by so many medias and outlet that be who you are. Don't hold back. Before it was like you can't be who you are. Like you can't just tell people I'm gay and expect everyone to be okay with it. And what would people think? Now it's more like don't worry about what people think. So the courage I had to come out had helped me get foreclosures. I went to a foreclosure convention and I was the gay guy and everybody was the same. I just was like, well, if I'm so different, I will just get more attention. And you see what I'm saying? So I was just different, whether they like me. And I have had people that they did not want to talk to me. But it helped me. And I think telepathically humans, they look in your eyes and they know if you're being authentic, real, or it was a fake conversation. And I am what you see me here at home, my friends, my mom, it's always the same. And it's just I have a lot of pressure on myself as it is, success that you mentioned, which I'm grateful, comes with a lot of small steps towards the right place. And so I just don't have the man to be someone else with others. And that being gay really helped me just accept yourself. And my husband one day, just like I don't know, like 10 years ago, he said something. I was going in a meeting and I was like, I gotta have to deal with this conversation. If it comes up, I was like thinking about 6 ways I'm gonna handle this. And then he looked at me and he goes like, why didn't you just run towards your fear? And I said, what do you mean? Because I just say it the first thing and just be done. So sorry about that. I went in a meeting and I said, hey guys, I just want to tell you this is what happened. And I actually think it's my fault and I'm sorry. No one could say anything. So the same thing when I came out, when I did say, everybody's like, we don't know what to do with you now. Do we want to beat you harder now because you are, So I think running towards your fear, it makes you be different. And whether you're gay or straight or whoever you are, it just makes you feel with others that you're authentic, you're real, and doesn't mean I haven't messed up. I'm just saying, but don't mess up the same thing twice.
I mean, what you're describing, and I did read about you coming out to your mom and really what her reaction was that she bleached your clothing and threw it in trash cans. And, she was like, your clothes are making you gay. There was all these things, right? And it was a pretty hard time. But I'm going to take it back to even so simple, right? And a lot of times people have to lean into your story so that they can realize that their trials and tribulations actually aren't that big of a deal, right? So I think that realtors that are new into the industry are they do want to pretend like they're someone else, right? They want to come in and they're like, I'm going to put on this persona and I won't call my database because God forbid, that they reject me. And they go through this horrible first couple of 18 months. I always see it. I've recruited thousands of people in my career like you have. And it's like, stop beating yourself up, just be authentic. And also, like you're saying, any real estate agent who's listening to this, or anybody really in the world that's starting something new, it's like if you just leaned into that, calling your database and said, "Hey, this is really awkward for me too. Quite frankly, I'm a helping person. I want to help you in your business, and I'm hoping you can help me too." Boom! You would have so many transactions, you wouldn't know what to do with it. But people won't say it because they're not comfortable in their authenticity for some reason.
And yeah, yeah. So one of, as you know, when I moved here, I didn't know anyone. So it was like, just go after people you don't know. There are people that they have an amazing database that they don't call, or there are people that only work with people they know, but they won't go after cold leads.
Right.
So ultimately, you don't go after anything, or you don't do anything is because of your insecurity or your lack of knowledge, or you are worried about the outcome. Once you just detach yourself from the result, it's much easier. So if you call your best friend from your high school and you haven't called for years and say, I just want to let you know, I'm sorry. I haven't been in touch with you for years and I'm just feel horrible. Now I'm in this business that it's all about meeting people and I feel embarrassed because I just haven't called you.
Right.
So now I just want you to know I love you. I'm sorry.
Right.
You know what I mean? So either they're not going to give you business because, well, you didn't have business from them. So it's the same thing. Or they will give you business.
I can't wait to get to that part where you say 100%, 100% is 0% of 100. Or how do you say it?
It's 100% of nothing is nothing.
Correct. And so I can't wait to get to that part too, because that always is just my favorite.
You know what? You're the only person will actually get this the most because, you have to be a team leader.
Yeah.
Through that process that you will see an agent who tells you exactly what you read. I was like, not many people get it if they're not in real estate or a team leader, but your team leader, is like, you get that all the time. And it was my pleasure to walk her out of the office. But anyway, I'll let you get it.
Well, and in true form, like what you were saying, is that a person from your high school that's in your database, they weren't doing business with you anyway. What is the worst thing that can possibly happen? That they choose not to still do business with you? Right. Because you weren't getting their business anyway, so it doesn't matter. The second piece is that if they did choose to do business with you, great. Now it's a bonus. It's so fantastic. Just call.
And you only did one call.
I know.
You only did one call. You didn't sign up for Zillow. You didn't get Redfin referral fee. God. You didn't have to worry about going to 6 appointments for them to like you. So it's one call.
Right. Yeah. So funny. People get so crazy. So the next time anybody listening to this podcast decides that they're going to get all whipped up, you can just think about Harma's mother throwing his clothing into a trash bin. He had nothing in his closet, pouring bleach over the top, and then, by the way, taking him to a therapist to convert him back to being heterosexual.
Heterosexual, who by a gay therapist, by the way.
I love it. I love when you said to him when you walked out, you're like, you know what? You can come on over to the dark side if you want. Your poor mother.
But my mom literally, obviously she's amazing right now, but she took bleach on very expensive designer clothes. She goes, "Those are all turning you gay." I was like, who cares? Look how beautiful they are. But, of course I didn't say that, but yeah, went through hell when I came out.
Well, and so people need to keep things into perspective for sure. And I really appreciate that part. It says on page 153, one of my favorite things that you said, and it was after a story of you working in a car wash, I believe, if I'm putting the story all together correctly. And you said, he believed I was capable of much more than I thought I was. He taught me to let go of the preconceived notions I had about honorable professions and see my potential and my ultimate calling. And my partner also believed in me when I didn't. He pushed me to get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. Pushed me to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And what I love about that is so many people will start in real estate or any career. Again, I mean, so I have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast and they start in a business and they think that like scrubbing the toilets is beneath them. And I'm like, babe, this is where we start. And when you get really good at that, that's when you get to move to the next level. And you talk a lot about, taking your time and incrementally putting things into process because success is built, over amount of time. And so do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I read something recently that they said the best people in their business are not because they think they're the best, they're the most insecure about what they do. So they do it over and over to become better at it. So they're not doing it to prove it, I'm good. Look at how good I am. They're actually practicing the same thing over and over. Like, for example, number one agent in a market share, if you really dig in, they're really good in the listing appointment or conversion because they're really insecure if they don't get it. And they are preparing to make sure they get it. So the practice. I see a little trend right now with new generation, I will say, that they like, I went to college, so now I should just have this job. And before, if you go many years ago, it was like you go to college, but you start from zero again and you build it and you earn it as you do it over and over. So I think that level of commitment that we have to do to get where we need to get. Like when I started, I became an operating partner and I had a lot of team leaders ask me if I will coach them. And I took a few people, and one of the team leaders said, hey, I just took this job and I want to tell you that this office is a complete mess. And I said, okay, what's the question today? Because like, no, I just need you to know, like this office has no ALC, no cappers. They don't care about KW cares. The OP is like the worst person in the market center. And mentors are this, the broker in this, MC doesn't want to listen, and on and on and on. And I said, I still don't understand. What do you need me to help you with? And she was like, well, I want to do this 2 years and I want to become an OP. I said, I did 7 years and my people told me I'm not even qualified to be an OP, and I'm still don't think I'm a good OP. But I don't know how to help you, and I don't think in 2 years you deserve it. Like you can't talk about I deserve in 2 years.
Right.
You gotta have a number, right?
Right.
And I ended up telling her, I said, just know that if the market center was functioning in such a high level, and your ALC was giving leads, and your OP was one of the most exceptional OPs out there, and your MCA was listening, you would not have this job, because why would the team leader not survive there?
Right.
So it's a matter of when you take a position or you take a listing that is expired, they gone through something, and the only reason they need you because something is off. So right. You can take it and to say the challenges, or I need this to be easy. If it was easy, a lot of people would not become number one. Right. It would be everyone. So.
Right. If you're not number one, you're last in my book.
Mm-hmm. In something. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of team leaders do get burned out, but I don't know why. I'm not really sure why they don't feel comfortable in the monotony. And I think that that's not being comfortable with yourself. And it's things that we've gone back to. It's like, if you know who you are and you can get comfortable in the monotony, you can actually build a tremendous amount of success in this company specifically. And that's one of the things that I've loved, is that I've always been able to see the next opportunity and the next opportunity. And I recently became have, having ownership in market centers as well this year. And I've been putting in the work for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's not instantaneous, not in some markets. In some markets, maybe it is. And maybe you came to the table with something different than you and I did, but it's certainly, put in the work and stay after it for a long time, especially with what Gary's cooking up right now. I think he's got some really good stuff coming around. So I'm pretty excited about.
Couldn't agree more. I think his, just look at him and compare it to other people. Look how many years he's been doing this,
mm-hmm.
right? Think about how many other ones are becoming CEO, they run a company, and he's like sitting in the back for a year. He doesn't have to work, obviously. And he's like, okay, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
So it's a very different, and it is not for everyone, and I do think that 10 years you worked hard to now have an ownership in market centers. Imagine how much you appreciate that. And it's like a sweet peach.
Yes.
You don't get it that often, but when you work hard and you get so you got it, and someone else will say, well, I want to have what she has. It's like 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years of many changes, many cappers and recruiting and MCA and regional meetings and things that you disagree to agree, and lots of drinking to get where we are. So, if you're not drinking, sorry.
We're going to talk about your hangovers here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. I mean, there's always fun times. So it says, page 159, you said, whatever you do, don't go to Keller Williams. It was a new company and everyone made fun of it. I heard it over and over again, and they described the culture as something between church and a cult. Nobody understood the model. It was non-traditional in real estate. Non-traditional was not good. I heeded their advice and steered clear. You ended up in another company who, interestingly enough, that shut down. And I'll tell you what's funny is I went through the 2006, 2007 crash in real estate as well. Mm-hmm. And because those companies are not held to being closing out their books every single month, what ends up happening is they might look fancy, like they were parking your cars, they had a concierge and all sorts of things at your real estate company. And that's just spending a ton of money, right? And there was no transparency on those books. So when a company consolidates or closes down, a lot of times agents don't understand why. And I'm like, they've been in the hole for years or months and they're living off of, nothing. The 100% club, right? They're constantly just giving away everything, but real estate companies are not being transparent with their books. And so when the pandemic hit, I would love to hear what you did to isolate your company. I mean, I saved, we have so much money in reserves that I could stay open for 3 years without one dime coming in. And I did that because I owe it to my real estate agents and their clients to stay in business when anything hits, a pandemic or hurricane. I don't give a crap. Like, we have to stay in operations. That's the duty that we have for our agents. What did you do during the pandemic?
So when they were closing, it was when REOs were coming in. So I didn't have any leadership position or anything like that. But I moved to Keller Williams, obviously. And shortly after, I had a big team, successful team. Was only me, assistant, and one buyer's agent. And that was the team. And then I became a team leader. And then meanwhile, I was building my business by door knocking, cold calling, Mike Ferry, as well as foreclosures, which I had no idea what it was. And when I became a team leader, I just saw people that they couldn't pay their rent.
Yeah, me too.
Divorced. The kids didn't have food.
Yeah.
And I was their team leader. And my foreclosures were being assigned to me. And it was a lot of money and effort to sell them. And I think one of the things, I believe in karma, and I believe what you do, sincerely, when you do, more comes. Maybe not that day, but you're not doing it because of that. So I did a lot for many people that, for example, I had a listing I will assign, and I say, I have no time to go there. Why? And I had a team, but I will just give it to one person. I'm like, hey, you get 25% of this, help me. Or I will have a buyers that they're calling me to double, and I'll give it to my agents. helping my MCA, because the office couldn't pay my MCA salary or bonuses more than, it was such a low pay. So I will pay the front desk. I have literally used my foreclosure to help me float. So my team was in a different office and I was team leader somewhere else. So I will float that. And then the other thing I realized that if we're all together and understand what's going on, you're not lonely. So people, like recently with this pandemic, also I learned that from past what I learned that people relay with, they relate to each other when they have a common pain. So if we all are not making money,
right,
and it's or whatever the pain you feel. So when this pandemic happened, is I have a friend and many other OPs that I know. There's some of them we draw from recruiting. They're like, stay safe, no team, like just not do anything for now until we see what's going to happen. I sat down with my team leader and my operation manager and my MCA. I said, we're going to double down. We're going to send mass proposals to every quarter capper out there. And we're going to tell them, do not stop. And listen, this is when May, we're like, you're not talking to anyone. I'd never gone through this. I had no idea the market would be the way it is. And we usually do annually 1 billion in volume. We're about to do 1 billion volume by end of June.
Dang!
And it doesn't just happen just because the market is good, because we really, I'm so proud of my team leader.
So good. That makes me so happy. I thought that I was doing well, but that just put me to shame. I mean, I did hit past the $1 billion mark, but not by June. So I'm super excited.
Well, we're not there. We are 800 million right now. So we do around 150 million a month now. So I'm hoping if we have that couple of big transactions, we will hit that, let's say July. But the key is, like, my team leader is like recruited 21 last month, and my team leader didn't come. This hasn't been doing it as long as you, but he's just so coachable and he's very different than me, and he's willing. And we have this relationship that is like, I can just pick up the phone and tell him versus, oh, let's sit in a office and then you do 45 minutes of this dance that we learn in Keller Williams that you have to have them self-discover. So it's like, and like you, I have no filter, so it's like so hard to go through that process. So
I know, but this is what you need to do.
Yeah, so I built the relationship. I said, hey, how do you want me to communicate with you? Because you do 21 recruit a month. That's, you are giving your life away. You're so busy in the office. So we have our weekly meeting, but he's just so coachable and he's willing to not reinvent the wheel and just copy what works. And so pandemic has really taught me to...
I have to tell you that I love people that will not reinvent the wheel. I don't want your sparkles. I don't need your sprinkles on it. It turns out there's a system. And I'm telling you, there's a system with everything. And so many people want to come into something and they're just chopping down the forest. And you're like, you do know that there's a path over there, right? It's okay. You can just follow the person that's already been successful in your field, but they don't make the phone call. They don't lean into the other people. They don't learn from other people. But oh my gosh, it's one of my biggest pet peeves. I'm like, come on, you don't have to work so hard. So I love that. That makes me happy that he's like that.
Oh, reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
So good. That's awesome. I'm glad that you guys did that double down. That is amazing numbers. Wow. So good. So good. All right, let's go to another piece. And I love this. 175, becoming a leader. Before you speak, have a sip of shut the F up water. Tell me what you mean by that. Even though I read it, I want you to tell the listeners. Shut the F up.
So there's a water that you're supposed to leave on your desk that when you're, especially as a team leader, I think it's in sales, it's in therapy, in in a big business that you deal with people. And when I'm a high I, and obviously we all have egos. My ego was off the chart when I was doing so well, and everybody was like, "You're great." So when they feed you more, and I was a young person that just experienced success too fast. Although I had no money, didn't know how to keep my money, but I just took the job, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get a salary, and I'm going to be a team leader, CEO. Yes, that's the title, which is just given like that. I told my team, I'm like, don't call yourself CEO until you act like one, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, was sitting there and talking, and people walk out. And the 6 months into the job, I was like, no one is joining. This is such a difficult job. And then someone who I respect a lot and was a team leader, still a team leader in our business, very passionate. And he goes like, have you ever tried to shut the F up? And I said, well, so who's going to tell them about Keller Williams? He goes like, why do you have to talk about Keller Williams? I'm like, they're there to learn about me and the company. I'm like, no, they're there for you to learn about them. And I'm like, I don't know anything about these people. He goes like, just shut the F up. And I said, how? I need to talk. I don't know how to stop. And so he challenged me. He said, put a cup of water, don't make sure it's not a bottle, and then let it be on your desk. Do not change it every day. It will turn green. And then every time you want to talk, you have to have a sip of that. So if you really have to talk, drink the algae water. And I was like, oh, I'm not drinking that. And then he goes like, well, it's called shut the F up water. So I start looking at it, and people will come, and literally agents will sit in front of me, and they will look at this green glass. They're like, what is that? It's like, I can't explain. It's just a challenge between me and my coach. It has to be there. So I would just look at that green. It was just disgusting at one point. And I had to get in a habit to stay quiet. And then I remember the second, third, I don't know, one of the interviews, this lady got up. She had horses. I don't have horses. Different life, we had nothing in common. And she hugged me. She goes like, Harma, my God, this was the first time I felt that I'm connected with someone. You and me have a lot in common. And I'm like, I literally looked at my shut that fuck water, and I haven't said a word. And this woman feels connected because all I did just got to know this person. I did not talk about ourselves. And that's one of the things that people talk about. Do you talk about Keller Williams profit share? I mean, our profit share last month was $30,000. I have a reason to talk about it, but I don't think is the reason should people join. And so I talk about them, and once they truly understand that we care about what they want to achieve, the rest continues. So so I learned about that water, that stay quiet, listen, and maybe I should have it right now because I'm talking nonstop. So
no, you are doing awesome. Well, you're supposed to. I'm interviewing you. So well, what I love is that even in this industry, to be a real estate agent, I think that you are a bubbly personality. You are an outgoing personality. You do want to talk. You want to connect. You want to have that. You want to have that interaction with people. And I find so often that people are listening just to respond. And one of the things that I tell, especially newer agents, I talk about newer agents because, of course, my top agents, we've got whole other challenge, which is like creating teams and actually creating businesses and S corps and payroll, and right. We talk about other stuff, but they have to do this with their clients as well. And what they're not doing is they're not listening to what the client actually needs. So they haven't done a full download with the client. And so they're showing the client 25, 30 houses. And I'm like, why would you spend so much time opening doors when you probably could have written an offer after the first 3 transactions? And I'll say, well, show me your intake sheet on this particular buyer. And so we have to coach around that because people aren't even doing intake sheets half the time. And I'm grateful that this company has so many systems and models to make sure that people are actually doing their job at the highest level so that buyers and sellers are actually in the best hands. That's what it really all boils down to is our buyers and sellers, right? So that was my favorite. Like when you said that, I was like, I cannot wait to use this with some people. It's going to be so good. Okay. So then what I thought was fascinating, and I told you that I was going to talk about you being a panelist. when you were in New Orleans. And so you had gotten so much recognition through our company that has 170,000 agents. And I believe back then we were at about 155,000 agents or something like that. But you had gotten so much recognition that they wanted to put you on stage and wanted to talk about your amazing results. And you said, well, I don't even like lead generation. As a matter of fact, I hate it. I think it's it's not my favorite part of the day. And the moderator was mortified. She was mad at you because you're hijacking her entire panel. But I think I was a panelist during that time. So in New Orleans, I was actually featured on a panel with other people. And the interesting thing is, though, and we might have been in different rooms, I don't know, but I remember that somebody finally said it, and I was like, yeah, I don't cold call it. I mean, I cold call, but I just do the same thing every single day. But I usually come in with relationships, right? So let's talk about that, because we talk about doing the hard things at KW a lot, but I think that a lot of businesses talk about this too, and people think it just comes naturally and easy. And it doesn't. It's hard, and you have to come in with the rhythm. And so you said you don't have to learn the things to love the things that you hate, even if you have to do them. Look at the things you dislike for what they are. It's a means to an end. It's a means to an end. So how do you?
There is no way. Let's just talk about. I have a close friend of mine who's a surgeon, and he removes 2 cancers per day, in the stage 3 and 4. And if you ask him, which part do you think he loves? The actual surgery, the telling the bad news, the good news, but when you look at him, he's changing lives, he's trying to save lives. So when you look at what we do, is like you close 12 transactions in a year, or you go 24, whatever the number is, because this is one thing I learned as a team leader, it's whatever makes you happy, that number. But to do that, there's so much you have to do that you might not like. And then I think we're in real estate, we're really overpaid, especially in California, I will say, that with what we do compared to potential income we have. And so you'd say, I don't like this, I don't like that. And I hear that all the time, because we have like around 95 new licenses in the mentoring program. And when I coach, I'm like, you cannot love every single part of this process. You've got to love the result. Yeah. And to get there, it's like you want to lose weight, just have a chicken breast with lettuce with no dressing. Trust me, it's pretty disgusting. But if you do it for 30 days, I bet you lose weight.
Right.
So you can, who likes that all day long? Right. So what it takes to lose, to get there or win. But definitely lead generation, it was not my favorite. I mean, it's also hard with my although you don't think I have an accent. Many years ago, I had a bigger one. And big accent saying, Harma, I'm a team leader with Keller, what? And people are like, Keller, what are you talking about? Team leader? What does that mean? Harma, what? So I was like, my name is John with the real estate company. Would you like to make a, manager? And so it was challenging to cold call random agents when they were told not to consider our company. And I had no office space. So you overcome that objections by focusing on what you're going to do. And then my biggest takeaway from that was, my God, I hate this process so much that I'm going to be so good in have them sign up so I don't have to get back on the call. Right. So you got to, to have it, do the work, but also become a good, if you're going to a listing appointment, you want to spend 45 minutes on the comps so they know, the market. So if the new agent goes for a listing appointment, you want to eliminate them because they don't know anything about your market. That's one. And then the other portion is, what are you going to do for them? And you better spend like an hour, whatever it is. So don't rush. Do the needs analysis. Listen, because unless you love cold calling or lead generation, try to get that listing so you have to do less of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I do think that people work very entrepreneurial, and they don't work very purposeful. And I think what you're saying is, slow it down, really get to know that person, drink the water if you're talking, do your needs analysis, and then pull them across the line and help them out with their career. I love that.
I'll add something to that. I had a dinner with, the number one agent in our nation of Keller Williams. It's Stephanie Bataco. Number 3 is Eric Delgado. They're in my office. And we had a guest from here where Berkshire Hathaway, no name, was with us on 2 years ago when we were able to go somewhere, I think family reunion. And we were having dinner. And I asked them, how long is your listing appointment? The shortest listing appointment was 55 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes.
Wow.
That was number 3. But number 1, I have no idea if they're okay for me to share all of this, but hey, they've been on a panel. I'm sure they're okay to share. So Stephanie said an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And the other one from Berkshire Hathaway, who's amazing, and he said an hour and a half to 2.
Yeah.
And these people do like 80, 100 transactions a year.
Yeah.
So I just learned is like, well, they're not just sitting there and talking as you would learn about the water. It's more like they're really going deep and learning what needs analysis because they want to get that listing. They don't want to go back and get on the phone. But anyway, sorry.
Well, no, so clients that are listening to this and that are sellers and buyers need to understand that if your real estate agent is not slowing down to take the time to understand all of your needs and hear you and your concerns, they're not going to be able to deliver the 5-star service. For me, I'm a very, very high D. I actually have a pretty low I because we do talk about the disc quite a bit, but I like to just get down to it and I want to just move on. I don't want to sit around and chat a lot of times, which is part of the reason why I actually gave myself the challenge to do podcasts, because I want to hear other people's stories for real. And sometimes I don't slow down long enough to do that. And so this was my opportunity to be able to get to know people. And I think that people listening to this podcast need to understand you have to spend the time to develop the deep relationships, because one transaction is actually multiple transactions. This year alone, me personally, I'm worth 6 transactions. You don't know what that person is sitting in front of you, when they're going to buy again, when they're going to sell, when their mother needs to move in with them and her house needs to sell, when their kids are going off to college and they might as well buy an investment property rather than put them in the dorms. You don't know when this is going to happen. So you've got to have that lengthy relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every transaction should be leading to another transaction and a buyer and a listing. And as you know, but you're not going to get that if you don't provide a good service. And 80% of the transactions are not investment. They're like the primary resident of people. And that's their biggest, where their money is. And you better listen and care the same way you're not going to get a stockbroker who doesn't know anything. They don't listen to you and just like buy you random stock. They're actually real estate agents. You're playing with consumers' money.
Right.
You better understand what they want and actually tell them you can deliver or not. Be honest with them. So anyway.
Yeah, I love that. You said, I had so many issues until I realized I was the issue. Which, I mean, let me go back in the book just a little bit here, because I did I skipped around a little bit, just kind of grazed over the fact that you were smacked by a bus and then another car that took out your legs, basically. And you were in a cast for how long? 2 casts, actually.
11 months.
And then you had a cane, you had a walker, then you had a cane, and you literally had to train yourself to walk again. And then you were like, that's it. I'm going to America. I'm out of here. So let's go back. You said, I had so many issues until I realized that I was the issue. There's a lot of people out there that I find have a victim mentality around the whole world is conspiring against them. The world must be conspiring against you because you had an abusive father, you were abused as a child, you were kidnapped, you had this quote unquote ailment living in Iran, not able to tell anyone about it and not knowing how to live with it. And I think there's a lot of people, like you said, first of all, you didn't know anybody that's ever gone through the type of things that you've gone through, which I don't either. Turns out you, in fact, have quite a crazy, first part of your life. And it's like, you didn't act like a victim though. You were just like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And you just kept going. And you had so many things that could have piled up, and you could have said, the world is, I'm a victim of the world. And you claimed all those issues. You said, this is, hey, I'm the problem, and I'm the issue, and I'm going to move forward with my life. And in almost every circumstance. So by the time that I got to this place where you were like operating principle at last, and you wrote that quote, I was like, you actually had that mentality the whole time, even as a child, and saying, well, that's just a circumstance of, what I encountered, and that's going to build me up to the next thing. And so, how did you identify that you were the issue in the business side of things?
Well, if more than 3 people around you are experiencing the same thing, it can't be all of them. It's you. And like Napoleon Hill always says, there's always 3 sides of any argument: is your side, his side, and the right side, which is the middle of both sides, right? And so I realized, but if the same arguments are happening more than 3, 4, 5 people, there's something with me that I'm causing it.
Right.
And I realized that there's some other pattern I had. I had this very heavy disappointments over and over and over. And I think one of the challenges, I worked so hard can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm getting echo. Okay. I worked so hard as a team leader for many years, and market was shifting, and I felt for a moment unappreciated. Then when I became an OP, I had this internal anger when a team leader would lie to me or will say, I'm working from home today. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I work until 11 o'clock at the office. We're not on IBM consulting. And then another team leader will say, I have an idea. I'm like, yeah, I know Edison had an idea. Keep your idea to yourself. Just please do what I'm asking you. And then just like I felt like constantly, or I don't have an office space. I'm like, you have 8,000 square feet. I built it in 2,000 square feet. And then, so I realized it can't be just them. I'm just having a lot of issues that I'm holding, and I got to work through them. And one of my coach at that time told me once and said, are you meeting your team leaders where they're at? I said, yes, I meet them in the office. I took them out to sushi. And she goes like, that's not what I'm asking. Are you meeting them where they're at? I paused. I said, no, I'm expecting them to meet me where I want to go.
Right.
I was like, so maybe you don't have the right people. So that's where I started switching. I looked at my team leaders as my assets, not as my team leaders. And I'm like, okay, this person is going to build it. And are they willing? So it really shifted my mindset. And when I am disappointed, it's just basically expectations I set for myself, and it's not them. And now, one thing also, my coach said that the assets that they are not performing, if you have a bunch of apartment buildings and they're not performing one, you sell that asset. You don't keep them just because they're negative. So it is okay if an asset is not performing to move on. And or some people had a purpose, they have a journey, and then at one point the journeys it's over.
Yeah.
That's okay too. But I will never ever do what I did to end it because I caused it, or and my MCA, who's been with me 14 years, she said the other day that you're very good in having people self-discover they need to go.
Yeah.
And because and then she wrote it down, and she goes like, oh my God, out of a lot of people, 90% of them, you help them get a job. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be in business with someone that it's not good enough, but if I'm responsible. So, but I looked into myself first, before I go out. It doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes again, but definitely look within yourself. And what you said about my life, my past life, I didn't have any other choice. When
Right.
you have this amazing parents that they're like, you go to college, you failed in something, come home, we will take care of you until you figure out. Listen, if you have that opportunity, it's amazing. But just think about it. If you don't have that, you're going to grab something else and you're going to do it harder to catch up. I didn't have it. I was sent to an island and all my boats were burned down and I had nothing. Either build a new boat to get out or build a new castle. And I had no other choice. So sometimes it's nice to have not a false hope and move on.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Just getting down to the reality of things. It's funny that you say that you helped people move on. You know, everybody always knows where they stand, and with me as well. And I have helped many people go get other jobs. And here's what's interesting is, I get a reputation as being very tough, and I'm okay with that. And I wish that more people would step into their own authentic self and set standards for everybody to be able to step into, because somebody did it for you, somebody did it for me, and because I was willing to step up where that person wanted me to go, that's why I got so many opportunities. And I wish that people wouldn't shrink away from that, and they would just, like you said, just kind of lean into that that tough love, if you will, and really just deliver the results, because the amazing things are on the other side. And I think that you definitely have that culture. I mean, like I said, we shared an employee, and I remember that employee saying, you know, yeah, I left Keller Williams, but I just really miss the culture, and I don't know what it is, but I just miss it. And so he comes back into the company, and here he is quite a few years later, and he's getting some, you know, ownership distributions and things like that, because he is knocking it out of the park with numbers. And so I think too, sometimes people have to go back and self-discover to come back forward. And I'm grateful for people that step back into it.
Yeah, it takes a talent to wants to move forward and own what they have or learn from it. And that's going back what you said, is like you got to earn it. And he's been in and out, and he's been working, it's been many years now that he's trying to become better at it. One thing he does is that I remember, he always wants to become better at whatever he's doing. And that's the key. If you don't, I mean, look at you're doing this and you're like, I want to learn from others. And the moment you stop learning is when you go backwards.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So you've got a boy and two girls, twin girls. How old are your kids now?
Our son is 7 and our twin girls are 6.
Oh my gosh, you are in the thick of it. Did you have to homeschool during the pandemic?
Straight. They just started going to school. It's been 4 weeks.
I feel for you.
I have to say that I don't know if I didn't do much as much as my partner did. He hasn't gone to his office since last March, but he's been dealing with their school. Yeah, I cannot. We send them to public school, very good public school. We are trying to keep their life as normal as we are trying to teach them that they're not going to have everything.
Yeah.
So that's one of the angles. But more important, they're amazing kids. You know, they make their beds. They're polite. They're very good kids. But one day, I remember I was home, and he said, "You have to cover," and no one there was there to help us for our staff. There was an email address that it was our son's name, last name, and my last name and his last name are hyphenated. And then it was like 5992224 LACD. It's like, and then LACD, LA district. I was like, oh, whoa, what kind of email is this? And then they're like, do you know the code? I'm like, password. I'm like, no. There's 4 websites you have to log in throughout the Zoom all day, and the different passwords, different emails, and this long. And then I couldn't do it. I said, I just can't. I'm sorry. I start literally melting in the house. There were 3 in different rooms. I had to run and make sure, and then break, 5 minutes break, and the teacher will say, you're on break, so find an adult and read. I'm like, whoa, who's on break? Like, I haven't been on break. Like, I've been watching 3 kids. Now they're on break, and which I'm responsible again. And then I'm responsible to put them back while you're I was like, I can't do it. So I started crying. I called him. We have a guest house. He was upstairs. I said, I'm sorry, I cannot do it. I'm leaving. I'm telling you, the kids are alone. I'm walking out of the house.
Oh my
I just couldn't do it. So I can't take credit for taking care of their Zoom. It just was so hard. And then you have to, they draw something, this is like a year ago, and the teacher said, please upload it. And then you have to log in individually, upload a pumpkin, which is drawn really, crappy. But of course, I tell them how beautiful it is. And that's the homework. So it's like, how many pumpkins can I upload on different websites, which I don't know how? And then you have to take a picture, email it to you, and then from you to, I said, I'm sorry, I cannot handle pumpkins. I cannot handle your artwork. I just cannot. I'm the father. I will do all the other stuff. So I'm doing all the activities, their scheduling it's on me, but cannot do the school. It's hard. Any parent who's been doing this, I admire you. It's just so hard.
We definitely have had some staff members that have had to be that parent that was taking their kids through schooling. And you know what I just think would be so funny is having a camera with these kids 10 years from now, like that, right? Like I want to know what your 16 and 18-year-olds get into, because you would not upload their pumpkin. And so you're going to,
I mean, imagine if my son wants to become a doctor and he studied everything on Zoom. I'm like, no, you're not touching me. You're not touching me. Like, I want to see another doctor, like older or like a newer generation. I just don't want them to learn on Zoom. But
yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I'm grateful that we're getting out of it. I'm grateful that we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. That's all awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Any final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with?
Get a role model. Don't reinvent the wheel if you want to expedite your success. If also in real estate, when you do well or you don't do well, when market shifts, good or bad, don't try to do something different. That's exactly when you're mastering what you do. And if production drops, don't look at the company, the manager, your office chair, the wall color. It's you and no one else. So looking within, create a very clean business plan. I wrote something here, if I can read it to you.
Yeah, please.
So a dream written down with a date before is a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. And a plan backed by action makes your dream come true. This is from Greg Reed, and I just love it. I post it everywhere. Every time someone in my environment in real estate says, I'm having a tough day, yesterday was a horrible day, I tell them it's like goal, plan, action, and none of them is coming easy. So
none of them are coming easy, and that is for sure. I'm going to show you something because you said that. So I don't have it up here. It must be in another folder. I know that you love Palm Springs, and I love Palm Springs. I go there multiple times a year, and I have this beautiful mid-century modern that I've printed off. It's not for sale. I just saw it in the Palm Springs magazine. And I remember Cody Gibson asking me in one of our interviews, because he's my business partner, and he said, okay, Leann, what do you want to do in the next 5 years? And he was like, no, seriously, like, don't give me the fake answer. And I'm like, I really don't have fake answers, but I just want to be helping people. And he said, okay, yeah, what else? And I go, well, I want this house in Palm Springs. And I held it up. And what's funny is the house sits in front of me. And what I don't think people understand is you said, have a dream, then have a plan, then have an action. And the plan, sometimes it's okay to have the dream first, and then the plan will start to come to fruition. You start understanding what it would take to buy that, I want the $7 million house in Palm Springs. Right? But then I can set it into motion. And so anyway, I think that that's so smart. And I think that, you can have the picture up all day long, but now you have to have a plan on how to get there.
Yeah. And it is okay to adjust the plan, but having a plan and adjusting it is a lot better than there's something I studied a couple times. It's called Lou Tice Pacific Institute. It's a thought pattern of successful people. When I took it the first time, I thought, oh my God, I'm not abnormal because, I think different. And the way I think, it's this course is teaching you to think. So, okay. And one of them, that they said that what you want and what you expect creates a different outcome.
Ah, I like that. And what is it? Loose sight?
Lou Tice, his name is Lou Tice. He passed away 4 or 5 years ago, and his courses are being taught. It's called Pacific Institute.
Mm-hmm.
It's I usually bring an instructor and I make all my staff take it at no cost. And I take my agents and I tell them if they take it, I'll reimburse them on their transaction. It's like $800. And it's so magical because it makes you think it's okay to want it and go for it. And it's okay. The way they actually use it in sports, and a lot of top team, they go through this to make them believe they're going to win the game.
Yeah.
So it's all programmed. So it's all about programming. So if you look into that, but it's very interesting. Like, I want to have an airplane, but I don't expect it. I really don't. Maybe in 5 years from now, we'll change that. But I expect a yacht, and I'm going to have it. I have the app. I'm educating myself. So the moment I expected the yacht, which I didn't expect this 10 years ago, but now I do. And I'm like, okay, Florida house, can I have a yacht? No. Hawaii? No, I can't have a yacht there. Okay, I can do it here. I don't like the water here. But if I do want to have it, what kind of yacht? Where? And I start learning. I'm not ready to buy it, but it's interesting. I start doing things about it.
Yeah.
And so just expect it's very different. And the problem is, if you're surrounded with people that they tell you that's just not going to happen, and then that's become a want, and you no longer expect it for yourself. And I call them kitchen agents. A lot of kitchen agents that they're just there to drink coffee. And so one is grabbing coffee and tells the other one who's grabbing coffee that, oh, you're farming. Yeah, that doesn't work. I tried once. Yeah. And the other one was like, oh my God, yeah, okay, I'm not going to do that. And then both now they're not doing it. And they go in the parking lot and go home. And then the top producing agent hasn't had coffee all day in the office and is cold calling and while is responding to all the farming calls. So it's like, I'd listen to someone who's done it. Don't take an advice from someone who's unqualified.
Gosh, yes. I love that too. That is so good. Okay. I know I already asked for one extra word of wisdom, but we got like 4 more extra words of wisdom.
Yeah.
Harma, it has been my pleasure to get to know you through your book. I always feel so connected to the person after I read so much about their lives and your mom and your dad and your siblings. And it's just been really awesome to get to know you. So thank you for your story. Thank you for putting it on paper. And thank you for interviewing with us today.
I appreciate you. Thank you for actually reading it so in details. And it's so cool to have a team that read it because it makes me happy because my life was that and you understand it. I will say I have been on many interviews. You understand the journey better than anyone.
Oh, well, it was my pleasure. Seriously, I loved it. So thank you so much.
And say hi to Cody and Brian too.
I will. I'll do that. And I'm Leann Harris, and that was Getting to Know Your Realtor. Harma Hartouni, get his book. You have it right here, Getting Back Up. Go get his book. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on Getting to Know Your Realtor. This episode was brought to you by Lifeline for Hope. Be sure to catch us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, and be sure to subscribe. Thanks so much again for joining us today. Have a great day.